The day I realized money couldn't buy a soul started like any other. I just didn't know it yet. I'm Jack Thompson. To the world, I'm the lucky husband of Sarah Thompson, CEO extraordinaire and Wall Street's golden girl. But to my daughter Lily, I'm just dad. That morning, Sarah's voice cut through the kitchen, sharp as her tailored suit. Another homeless shelter? Please. They're just enablers, Jack. I watched her stir her coffee, wondering when success had turned her heart to stone. They help people, Sarah, I said, my voice low so Lily wouldn't hear from the next room. Sarah's laugh was cold. Help? They're teaching people to be lazy. If those people really wanted to change their lives, they would. I bit my tongue. What did I know? I was just a stay-at-home dad who'd married well. As Sarah clicked out the door in her Louboutins, Lily bounced in, pigtails swinging. Can we get pizza tonight, Dad? I smiled, grateful for the distraction. Sure, kiddo. Mom's got a late meeting anyway. Hours later, we sat in Tony's Pizzeria, the same booth we'd claimed for years. Lily chatted about school, her words a comforting stream of normalcy. As we left, a small figure caught my eye. A boy, couldn't be more than 10, huddled by the dumpster. No shoes. Clothes hanging off his skinny frame. Lily saw him too. Daddy, look, she whispered, tugging my sleeve. I thought of Sarah's words, but all I saw was a hungry kid. Hey there, I called out, holding our leftover pizza. Want this? The boy's eyes darted between me and the box, a war of hunger and mistrust playing out on his face. Slowly, he nodded, reaching out with trembling hands. As we walked away, Lily looked up at me. Will he be okay, Daddy? I squeezed her hand, wishing I had a better answer. I hope so, sweetheart. In the car, I couldn't shake the image of the boy. His hollow cheeks, his grateful eyes. I imagined Sarah's reaction if she'd been there. In my mind's eye, I saw her handing over the pizza with a grimace, her nose wrinkling in disgust. Here, she'd say, her tone dripping disdain. But don't think this is solving anything. You need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. The thought made my stomach turn. When had we become so cold? When had success hardened us to the point where a child's hunger was an inconvenience rather than a tragedy? At home, I tucked Lily into bed, surrounded by her mountain of stuffed animals and designer clothes. The gnawing emptiness in my gut grew. We had everything, and yet something crucial was missing. I stood by the window, looking out at our manicured lawn, the neighborhood of identical mansions. Somewhere out there, a boy was sleeping on the streets. And my wife, the woman I loved, would see his misfortune as a personal failing. Sarah came home late, as usual. She slipped into bed, the glow of her smartphone illuminating her face. How was your day? I asked, knowing the answer. Productive, she replied, not looking up. Closed the Miller deal. You? I hesitated. Took Lily for pizza. We saw a homeless kid. Now she looked at me, eyebrow raised. Don't tell me you gave him money. Pizza, I said. We gave him our leftover pizza. Sarah sighed, putting down her phone. Jack, we've talked about this. You can't save everyone. It's not our job to fix the world. But what if it is? I whispered. She didn't answer, already focused back on her emails. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, Sarah's steady typing a counterpoint to my whirling thoughts. When did success become synonymous with indifference? When did we decide that those who had fallen didn't deserve a hand up? Something had changed in me. That pizza, that boy, that moment of connection. It had cracked open a part of me I thought long buried. And I knew, with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified me, that I couldn't go back to the way things were. The game was about to change. And neither Sarah nor I were ready for what was coming. Man, I had no clue that giving away some leftover pizza would turn our world upside down. What about you guys? Ever been in a spot where you wanted to help someone, but that little voice in your head was all, hold up, is this a good idea? Drop your stories in the comments. It's crazy how these split-second decisions can be real game changers, right? What would you do if you came across a homeless child? Would you help immediately or hesitate, thinking of the possible consequences? Share your opinion in the comments below. The next morning dawned with an eerie normalcy that would haunt me for years to come. If I'd known it was the last time I'd see Lily's smile for hours that felt like eternities, I might have held her a little tighter, kissed her forehead a little longer. Sarah was already gone, her side of the bed cold. Another early meeting, another deal to close. I got Lily ready for school, our routine a comforting dance of backpacks and breakfast. Dad, Can we get ice cream after school? Lily asked, her eyes bright with hope. I ruffled her hair. Sure thing, kiddo. It'll be our little secret. If only I'd known the real secret that day would hold. I dropped her off at Westfield Elementary, watching her pigtails bounce as she ran to meet her friends. Just another Tuesday. Or so I thought. Back home, I busied myself with household chores, the mundane tasks of a stay-at-home dad. Laundry, dishes, grocery lists. The clock ticked away, each second bringing me closer to a nightmare I couldn't yet imagine. At 2:17 p.m., my world imploded. The phone rang, Principal Garner's name flashing on the screen. My heart skipped a beat. Lily was fine. She had to be fine. Mr. Thompson? Her voice trembled. There's been an incident. Lily's missing. The words hit me like a physical blow. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. What do you mean, missing? I managed to choke out. She never came back from recess. We've searched the entire school. I'm so sorry, Mr. Thompson. The police are on their way. I don't remember hanging up. Don't remember grabbing my keys. The next thing I knew, I was tearing down the streets, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The school was a hive of activity. Police cars, worried parents, teachers with tear-stained faces. I pushed through the crowd, desperation clawing at my throat. Where is she? I demanded, grabbing the first officer I saw. Where's my daughter? His face was a mask of professional concern. Sir, we're doing everything we can. Can you tell us what Lily was wearing today? I described her outfit, her favorite blue backpack with the unicorn keychain. Each detail was a knife to my heart. How could this be happening? I called Sarah, my fingers fumbling with the phone. She answered on the third ring. Jack, I'm in a meeting. Can this wait? Lily's missing, I blurted out. She disappeared from school. The police are here. Sarah, our baby is gone. There was a long pause. When Sarah spoke again, her voice was different. Controlled, too controlled. I'm sure it's a misunderstanding, Jack. She probably wandered off. Have they checked the library? Lily loves the library. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sarah, this is serious. Our daughter is missing. We need you here. Another pause. Jack, I can't just leave. This merger is crucial. The police know what they're doing. Call me when you know more. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, disbelief warring with anger. How could she be so calm? So detached? Hours passed in a blur of questions, searches, and growing despair. Each minute without news was an eternity. I paced the school grounds, my mind conjuring horrific scenarios. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the playground, a small figure caught my eye. A boy, barefoot and ragged, watching from the edge of the schoolyard. With a jolt, I recognized him, the same kid from the pizzeria. He approached slowly, his eyes serious beyond his years. I saw what happened to your girl, he said softly. Sarah's voice echoed in my head. Never trust street people, Jack. They'll say anything for a buck. But desperation won out. Where is she? I asked, my voice cracking. The boy's answer would set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. Our lives, our marriage, our very understanding of what it means to be human. As I followed him away from the school, away from the flashing lights and concerned murmurs, I realized that sometimes, salvation comes from the most unexpected places. And sometimes, the people we trust the least are the ones who can save us all. The boy's words hung in the air, heavy with promise and dread. I know where they took her. My heart raced. Could I trust him? This child of the streets, with his 2 old eyes and threadbare clothes? Sarah's voice echoed in my head, cold and dismissive. Street people will say anything for a buck, Jack. But what choice did I have? Show me, I said, my voice hoarse. He nodded, turning without a word. I followed, my designer shoes slapping against the pavement in stark contrast to his bare feet. We wound through alleys I'd never known existed, the underbelly of our pristine city. Each step took us further from the world I knew, from the flashing police lights and concerned faces. The boy moved with the confidence of someone who knew these shadows intimately. What's your name? I asked, trying to bridge the chasm between us. Tommy, he replied, not looking back. Tommy, how do you know where Lily is? He paused, glancing over his shoulder. I see things. People don't notice me, so I notice everything. A chill ran down my spine. How much had this child seen? How much had we, the comfortable and privileged, ignored? We emerged near an abandoned park, its rusted swings creaking in the evening breeze. Tommy pointed to a dilapidated shed at the far end. There, he said, but be careful. The man who took her, he's dangerous. I stared at the shed, my heart pounding. Lily could be in there, scared and alone. Or it could be a trap, set by this street-smart kid for a desperate father. How do I know you're telling the truth? I asked, hating the doubt in my voice. Tommy's eyes met mine, unflinching. You gave me pizza when I was hungry. Nobody does that. I wouldn't lie to you. In that moment, I saw more humanity in this child than I'd seen in most adults lately. Including myself. Okay, I nodded. What's the plan? I'll distract him, Tommy said, picking up a rock. You get your daughter. Before I could protest, he hurled the rock at the shed's window. The crash shattered the evening quiet, followed by a man's angry shout. I sprinted towards the shed, adrenaline coursing through me. The door burst open, a burly man emerging, his face twisted with rage. Tommy's voice rang out, taunting. Hey, ugly, can't catch me. The man turned, distracted by this new threat. I slipped past him into the shed. And there she was, my Lily, huddled in a corner, eyes wide with fear. Daddy? She whispered, disbelieving. I scooped her up, holding her close. I'm here, baby. I'm here. Outside, I heard Tommy's continued taunts, keeping the kidnapper at bay. We had to move fast. Hold on tight, I told Lily, and ran. We burst out of the shed. The kidnapper, seeing us, roared in anger. But Tommy, this incredible, brave boy, darted in front of him, buying his precious seconds. Run, Tommy yelled. And we did. Through the park, down the streets, my arms aching but refusing to let go of my precious cargo. Behind us, sirens wailed. Someone must have called the police. We didn't stop until we reached the flashing lights of a police barricade. Officers swarmed around us, paramedics rushing to check Lily. In the chaos, I looked for Tommy. But he was gone, melted back into the shadows he knew so well. As I answered questions, holding Lily close, my phone buzzed. Sarah. Jack? What's happening? I'm on my way. Her voice was tight with worry, the corporate coolness finally cracked. We found her, I said, my voice breaking. She's safe. There was a pause, then a sob. The first real emotion I'd heard from her in years. Later, as the police took our statements and Lily was checked over in an ambulance, I told them about Tommy. The officers exchanged glances. A homeless kid? One asked skeptically. Are you sure, Mr. Thompson? I thought of Tommy's eyes, wise beyond their years. Of his bravery in the face of danger. I'm sure, I said firmly. And we need to find him. To thank him. As the night deepened, with Lily safe in my arms and Sarah on her way, I realized something profound had shifted. A boy from the streets, someone we'd all ignored, had just saved my daughter. Had saved us all. The world looked different now. And I knew, with bone-deep certainty, that nothing would ever be the same again. The next few days passed in a blur of police statements, hospital visits, and a media frenzy that threatened to overwhelm us. Through it all, one thought kept nagging at me. Where was Tommy? I sat in our living room, surrounded by the trappings of wealth that suddenly seemed so hollow. Lily was upstairs, finally sleeping without nightmares. Sarah paced, her phone glued to her ear, damage control in full swing. No, we're not giving any interviews, she snapped. Our daughter's safety is our primary concern. I watched her, this woman I'd married, wondering when she'd become a stranger. When had our lives become all about image and bottom lines? As she hung up, I cleared my throat. Sarah, we need to talk about Tommy. She turned, her face a mask of irritation. The street kid? Jack, please. We need to focus on Lily now. He saved our daughter, I said, my voice low but firm. We owe him. Sarah's laugh was bitter. Owe him? He probably set the whole thing up. These people, they're always looking for an angle. I stood, anger rising. These people? He's a child, Sarah. A brave child who risked everything to help us. Don't be naive, Jack, she sighed. This is probably some elaborate scam. He'll be back, asking for money, you'll see. I stared at her, really seeing her for the first time in years. When had she become so cold? So cynical? I'm going to find him, I said. With or without your help. Sarah's eyes narrowed. And do what, exactly? Adopt him? Bring him into our home? Be realistic, Jack. We have Lily to think about. Yes, we do, I agreed. And what are we teaching her if we don't help the boy who saved her? I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door. Sarah's voice stopped me. Where are you going? To do the right thing, I replied, not looking back. The streets looked different now. Every alley, every shadowy corner could be hiding a child like Tommy. How many had I walked past, unseeing, in my comfortable bubble? I started at the abandoned park where we'd found Lily. No sign of Tommy. I asked around, showing his picture to shopkeepers and passers-by. Most just shook their heads, eager to avoid involvement. As night fell, I found myself back at Tony's Pizzeria. The owner, Tony, recognized me. "Mr. Thompson, how's your little girl?" "She's safe, thanks to a brave boy," I said. "I'm looking for him. His name's Tommy. Have you seen him?" Tony's face softened. "The barefoot kid? Yeah, he comes around sometimes. I give him leftover slices when I can." My heart leapt. "Do you know where he stays?" Tony hesitated. "There's an old building, couple blocks down. Condemned, but kids like him, they find ways in. Be careful, though. It's not a good area." I thanked him and headed out, determination overriding caution. The building Tony mentioned loomed ahead, a dark hulk against the night sky. "Tommy?" I called softly, entering the crumbling structure. "It's Jack, from the pizza place." A shuffle, then a small voice. "You shouldn't be here, mister." I turned to see Tommy emerging from the shadows, his eyes wary. "I've been looking for you," I said. "To thank you. You saved my daughter." He shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "Anyone would have done it." "No," I said gently. "They wouldn't have. You're special, Tommy. Brave." He looked away, and in that moment, I saw the child beneath the street-tough exterior. "Why are you really here?" he asked. I took a deep breath. "I want to help you, Tommy. You shouldn't be living like this." His laugh was bitter, too old for his young face. "And go where? Foster care? Been there. Ran away for a reason." My heart ached. What had this child been through? "There has to be a better way," I insisted. "Please, let me try to help." Tommy studied me, his gaze piercing. "Why do you care? Your kid's safe. You got what you wanted." The question hit me hard. Why did I care? Because it was the right thing to do? Or because helping Tommy eased my own guilt? "Because," I said slowly, "you reminded me of something I'd forgotten. That we're all connected. That every child deserves a chance." Tommy's tough facade cracked, just a little. "Even street kids?" "Especially street kids," I said firmly. As we stood there, in that crumbling building, I realized the true weight of the choice before me. It wasn't just about helping Tommy. It was about redefining my entire worldview. About challenging Sarah's cold pragmatism. About teaching Lily the true meaning of compassion. It wouldn't be easy, but looking at Tommy, I knew it was necessary. "Come on," I said, holding out my hand. "Let's get you somewhere safe. And then, we'll figure this out. Together." Tommy hesitated, then took my hand. As we walked out into the night, I felt the first stirrings of real hope. The road ahead would be hard, but for the first time in years, I knew I was on the right path. The drive home was silent, Tommy's presence in the backseat a stark reminder of the chasm between his world and mine. As we pulled into our driveway, the contrast became even more glaring. Our mansion loomed, a monument to excess. Tommy's whistle cut through the quiet. "This is where you live?" I nodded, suddenly embarrassed by our wealth. Yeah." As we approached the front door, it swung open. Sarah stood there, her face a storm of emotions. "Jack, what the hell?" she hissed, eyeing Tommy. "You can't just bring a street kid home." I steeled myself. "Sarah, this is Tommy. The boy who saved our daughter." Her eyes widened in recognition, then narrowed again. "Jack, a word." Now, I turned to Tommy. "Wait here, okay? There's a swing on the porch." Inside, Sarah rounded on me. "Have you lost your mind? We can't have him here. He has nowhere else to go," I argued. "Sarah, he saved Lily. We owe him. We owe him a thank you and maybe some money. Not a place in our home." Our voices rose, the argument heating up. Suddenly, a small voice cut through. "Daddy?" We turned to see Lily on the stairs, rubbing her eyes sleepily. Then she saw past us, to the open door where Tommy stood awkwardly. Her face lit up. "Tommy." Before we could react, she'd run past us and thrown her arms around the startled boy. "You saved me," she said simply. Tommy patted her back awkwardly, his tough facade crumbling in the face of Lily's innocent gratitude. Sarah watched, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she approached them. "Thank you," she said softly to Tommy, "for bringing our daughter back to us." Tommy nodded, clearly uncomfortable with the attention. Sarah took a deep breath, then turned to me. "He can stay. For now. But we need a plan, Jack." Relief washed over me. It was a start. The next few days were a whirlwind of adjustments. Tommy, unused to the comforts of our home, alternated between wide-eyed wonder and wary suspicion. Lily attached herself to him like a shadow, her trauma eased by his presence. Sarah, true to form, approached the situation like a business problem to be solved. "We need to find his family," she said one night after the kids were in bed. I sighed. "Sarah, from what he's told me, his family is the last place he should be." She paced, agitated. "Then foster care. Or an orphanage. There have to be systems in place for kids like him. Systems that failed him before," I pointed out. "He ran away for a reason." Sarah stopped, fixing me with a hard stare. "What exactly are you proposing, Jack? That we keep him? Adopt him? Be realistic." I met her gaze. "Why not? We have the means. The space. It's not that simple and you know it," she snapped. "What about background checks? Legal issues? Our reputation? Our reputation?" I echoed, incredulous. "Is that really what you're worried about?" Sarah's face softened slightly. "No, of course not. But Jack, we can't just upend our lives on a whim." "It's not a whim," I said quietly. "It's the right thing to do." Before she could respond, a crash from upstairs had us both running. We found Tommy in the guest room, a broken vase at his feet, his face a mask of terror. "I'm sorry," he blurted. "I didn't mean to. Please don't send me away." The fear in his eyes broke something in me. I knelt beside him, heedless of the shattered ceramic. "It's okay, Tommy," I said gently. "It's just a vase. You're not going anywhere." I looked up at Sarah, a silent plea in my eyes. She stood frozen for a moment, then slowly knelt beside us. "He's right," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "This is your home now, Tommy. If you want it to be." Tommy looked between us, disbelief warring with hope on his young face. "Really?" Sarah nodded, and I saw a glimmer of the woman I'd fallen in love with years ago. "Really?" As Tommy's tears of relief soaked into my shirt, I held him close, feeling the tremors that shook his small frame. Sarah's hand found mine, squeezing gently. In that moment, surrounded by broken ceramic and broken barriers, I realized we'd taken the first step on a new journey. It wouldn't be easy. There would be legal hurdles, adjustments, and undoubtedly more arguments. But looking at Tommy, at the hope blooming in his eyes, I knew it was worth it. We'd been given a chance to not just change a life, but to change ourselves. To remember what truly mattered. As we sat there, a family redefined, I felt a sense of purpose I'd long forgotten. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I was excited to see where it would lead. The weeks that followed were a crash course in bureaucracy, patience, and the true meaning of family. Sarah, ever the CEO, attacked the adoption process with the same fervor she applied to corporate takeovers. "We need character witnesses," she announced one morning, poring over a stack of legal documents. "Jack, call your brother. And that charity you volunteer for." I nodded, marveling at the change in her. The woman who once scoffed at street people was now fighting tooth and nail to make one a permanent part of our family. Tommy, for his part, oscillated between hope and suspicion. I'd often find him in the middle of the night, stuffing food into his pockets. "Hey, buddy," I said gently one such night. "You know you don't have to do that, right? There'll always be food here for you." He looked at me, his eyes old beyond their years. "You say that now. But what if you change your mind?" My heart clenched. "Tommy, we're not changing our minds. You're family now." He nodded, but I could see the doubt lingering. Years on the street had taught him harsh lessons about trust. Lily, bless her heart, was Tommy's most ardent supporter. She'd taken to introducing him as her brother to anyone who'd listen. "And he saved me from the bad man," she'd say proudly, making Tommy squirm with embarrassment. It was during one of Sarah's marathon paperwork sessions that the doorbell rang. I opened it to find a stern-faced woman in a crisp suit. "Mr. Thompson? I'm Clara Jennings from Child Protective Services. We're here about Tommy." My stomach dropped. "Here? Why?" "Standard procedure, Mr. Thompson. May we come in?" I led them to the living room, where Sarah was already on her feet, CEO mode fully engaged. "Mrs. Thompson," Clara nodded. "We have some concerns about Tommy's placement here." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "Concerns? We've submitted all the required paperwork. We've passed every check." Clara's gaze was unwavering. "It's not about the paperwork, Mrs. Thompson. It's about suitability. Your lifestyle, your background." I felt a flare of anger. "Our background? You mean our success?" "Mr. Thompson," Clara sighed, Children from Tommy's background often struggle to adjust to extreme changes in circumstance. We're not sure this environment is in his best interest. Before Sarah could unleash what I was sure would be a blistering response, a small voice came from the doorway. "Don't I get a say?" We all turned to see Tommy standing there, his face set in determination. Clara softened her tone. "Of course, Tommy. That's why we're here. To ensure you're in the best possible situation." Tommy stepped into the room, his eyes never leaving Clara's face. "I've been in foster homes. I've been on the streets. For the first time, I feel safe. Wanted." He glanced at Sarah and me, then back to Clara. "They're not perfect, but they're trying, really trying. Isn't that what matters?" The room fell silent. Clara studied Tommy, then looked at Sarah and me. I held my breath, feeling like our entire future hung in the balance. Finally, Clara spoke. "Well, it seems Tommy has made his feelings clear. But there's still a long road ahead. This won't be easy." Sarah stepped forward, her voice firm. "Nothing worth doing ever is. But we're committed to this." To Tommy, Clara nodded slowly. "Very well. We'll continue the process. But be prepared for more visits, more scrutiny." As she left, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. We weren't out of the woods, but we'd cleared a major hurdle. That night, as Sarah and I got ready for bed, I caught her staring at a photo of Tommy and Lily, taken at the park last weekend. "Penny, for your thoughts?" I asked. She turned to me, her eyes shining. "I was wrong, Jack. About so many things. Tommy, he's changed us. For the better." I pulled her close, feeling the truth of her words. We'd set out to save a boy from the streets, but in the process, he'd saved us. From our complacency, our blind spots, our hardening hearts. As we drifted off to sleep, I thought about the journey ahead. It wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, moments of doubt. But for the first time in years, I felt truly alive. Truly purposeful. We'd been given a second chance. Not just to be parents, but to be better people. And I was determined not to waste it. In the quiet of the night, I made a silent promise. To Tommy, to Lily, to Sarah, to myself. We'd build something beautiful from the broken pieces of our past. A true family, bound not by blood, but by choice. By love. And that, I realized, was the greatest adventure of all. 1 year. That's how long it took for Tommy to officially become a Thompson. 1 year of paperwork, home visits, court appearances, and more than a few sleepless nights. The day of the final adoption hearing dawned bright and clear. As we stood before the judge, Tommy squeezed my hand, his palms sweaty with nerves. "It's okay, buddy," I whispered. "We're not going anywhere." The judge, a kind-faced woman with graying hair, smiled at us. "Well, Tommy," she said, "are you ready to be a Thompson?" Tommy nodded, his voice small but sure. "Yes, ma'am." With a bang of her gavel, it was done. Tommy was ours, legally and irrevocably. As we left the courthouse, Lily danced around us, chanting, "Tommy's my brother." For real. Sarah, her eyes suspiciously moist, pulled Tommy into a hug. "Welcome to the family, sweetheart." That night, as the kids slept upstairs, Sarah and I sat on the porch, reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. "You know," Sarah said softly, "a year ago, I would have said this was impossible. That we couldn't possibly open our hearts and home to a street kid." I nodded, remembering her initial resistance. "And now?" She smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that I hadn't seen in years. "Now I can't imagine our family without him." As we sat in comfortable silence, I thought about the changes the past year had brought. Not just in our family dynamic, but in our worldview. Sarah had stepped back from her CEO role, delegating more to focus on the kids. She'd started a foundation to help homeless youth, pouring her business acumen into making real change. I'd gone back to work part-time, finding a balance between home and career that I'd never thought possible. We were both learning, growing, becoming better versions of ourselves. But the biggest change was in Tommy. The wary, street-tough kid had blossomed into a confident, kind-hearted boy. He still had his moments of doubt, of fear, but they were becoming fewer and farther between. A week after the adoption, I found Tommy in his room, staring at his new birth certificate. "You okay, bud?" I asked, sitting beside him. He nodded, tracing his finger over the words. "It's real now, isn't it? I'm really part of this family." "You always were," I said gently. "This just makes it official." He looked up at me, his eyes serious. "I want to help other kids. Kids like I was." My heart swelled with pride. That's a wonderful idea. What are you thinking? Maybe I could talk to them? Tell them it's okay to trust sometimes. That there are good people out there. I pulled him into a hug, marveling at his resilience, his compassion. I think that's perfect, Tommy. We'll figure out a way to make it happen. As the months passed, our new normal settled in. Tommy thrived in school, his natural intelligence finally given the chance to shine. Lily adored her big brother, following him around like a devoted puppy. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Tommy still had nightmares sometimes, waking up screaming from memories of his time on the streets. On those nights, we'd all pile into his bed, surrounding him with love and safety until the tremors subsided. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Lily piped up. "Daddy, remember when you gave Tommy pizza that first time?" I nodded, smiling at the memory. "I do, sweetheart." She turned to Sarah. "Mommy, why didn't you want to help Tommy at first?" The table fell silent. Sarah looked stricken for a moment, then took a deep breath. "Because, honey," she said slowly, "I was wrong. I thought I knew everything, but I didn't. Tommy taught me, taught all of us, that sometimes the greatest gifts come in unexpected packages." Tommy ducked his head, embarrassed but pleased. "You guys saved me too, you know," he mumbled. I reached out, squeezing his shoulder. "I think we saved each other, buddy." As I looked around the table at my family, my incredible, improbable family, I felt a surge of gratitude so strong it nearly took my breath away. We'd started this journey thinking we were rescuing a boy from the streets. But in truth, he'd rescued us. From our complacency, our narrow worldview, our hardening hearts. Tommy had shown us the true meaning of resilience, of courage, of love. He'd made us confront our prejudices, challenge our assumptions, and ultimately, become better people. As we cleared the table, laughing and talking, I caught Sarah's eye. She smiled, and I knew she was thinking the same thing. Our family wasn't perfect. We still had challenges to face, hurdles to overcome. But we'd face them together, stronger for the love that bound us. And that, I realized, was the greatest gift of all. Not the family we were born into, but the family we chose. The family we built, one act of kindness at a time. In saving Tommy, we'd saved ourselves. And our journey was only just beginning. Looking back, this whole ride with Tommy taught me that family isn't just about DNA. It's about showing up, you know? Which part of our story hit you the hardest? Was it Sarah's 180, Tommy's guts, or how we all grew together? Shoot your thoughts in the comments below. Who knows? Your take might be just what someone else needs to hear. If our story got you in the feels, hit that follow button for more real talk about life-changing moments. Smash that like to spread the love, and don't forget to turn on those notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Remember, we've all got the power to shake things up in someone's world. So, what's your move gonna be tomorrow? Let's make it count.